Hello, everyone. A very good evening and a very warm welcome to the weekly Sunday TSW inspirational series. And every Sunday, we are here for you with a special guest, an outstanding, extraordinary woman around the globe who inspires us to be more, do more, and have more. And today, it's a pleasure to have Neerja Singh with us, who is going to talk about how to reclaim your personal power. A very warm welcome, Neerja, and it's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Namrata. I look forward to interacting on how to reclaim your personal
Yes,
power.
we
Yes.
look forward to listening to you, those pearls of wisdom coming out from you today, Neerja. But before we start, I would like to introduce you to the audience. So just allow me to do that. So Neerja Singh is a Seenager, which means a senior teenager. How exciting is that? She considers herself a millennial in a spirit with the benefit of a hindsight. A professional speaker on generational competence with 37 years of work and life experience as an advertisement executive, a prize winner, fiction writer, feature journalist, teacher, documentary script writer, director, and a professional columnist. She addresses India's never before generation gap in the spirit of generational interpreter. She is at present the president of Professional Speakers Association of India. So, Anija, welcome once again. And we chose the topic Reclaim Your Power. And I was just to mention the backdrop of how we chose the topic. I was going through a book called The Motivational Manifesto. And this book is by Brendan Burchard. And in this book, he mentions that the main motive of humankind is pursuit of personal freedom, and he also says that there are two impediments or two enemies that come in your way when you are seeking pursuit of personal freedom. The first one is external, which comes in form of social oppression, and the second one is internal, which is caused by our own fear and doubt. And then he goes to mention that to attain personal freedom, you need to battle with your own fears and self doubts and self limiting beliefs and distractions that we have. And also, most importantly, we need to step into our personal power. And that's what got me intriguing. I thought, let's have a session on personal power, and who better to have with us today than you talking on this. But Nita, talking about the current scenario, what all of us are going through today, everybody is suffering in some form or the other. This topic becomes even more relevant. So, to start with, I would request you to explain to the audience what is meant by personal power and how is it relevant to reclaim our personal power, especially during the testing times, the unprecedented times, and the sufferings that is caused by pandemic today. So, yes, over to you.
Thank you, Namrata, and to audience listening out there, friends and well, fellow travelers. There's a quote which is credited to Montgomery that says, "No man is free who has 1,000 ancestors." And you just said it, Namrata, that we are not really ever completely free, and yet deep down at a very, very fundamental level, we are all looking to break free. I want to break free. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Now, uh, I think life is given to us given to each of us in trust. I believe very deeply in that, and therefore the onus is on us to expand the maximum we can. And to me, that is your personal power. Your personal power is in how can you increase your circle of influence. And by circle of influence, I don't mean uh, the kind of power over others where you're making them do what you want them to do, not that kind of power. I
yeah,
believe the real power is in growing to your best, achieving all your faculties. Namrata, I don't want to go up there, I mean, after my last breath, and
yeah,
then have regrets that I could have done this, or I could have helped there, or I could have contributed more in that particular sphere. I want
yeah,
to go with a slate free that I did my best. I believe when you and I and everybody else out there, when we do go up wherever we go, there will be a family, they say, waiting to welcome us, or guides, or soul spirits, or whatever you call them. Maybe that doesn't happen, but the fact is that we're not here forever. We are mortal beings. I'm very conscious of that. I'm very
Yeah.
conscious of the time left to us. And I want to make sure that I've done my absolute level best. I've utilized the faculties I've been given, whether it's the power of words, written words, spoken words, whatever your gift, your talent is. That to me is the personal power. And of course, you know, I know, everybody knows that power comes from within. It
Yeah.
doesn't come from the outside. Now, you're talking in terms of the pandemic that we are facing. Of course, that personal power is very important. That is what will get us through these uncharted waters that we are trying to swim in. And what do we have for company? We have anxiety, we have grief, we have losses. There's so many of us out there who've lost a close family member. I've lost one. And there were days I couldn't sleep after that happened because
Yeah.
it's unexpected. It happens so fast. You're not expecting somebody 49-year-old or much younger sometimes, older, to just disappear from the face of the earth. Completely uh, disturbing, at very, very shocking. So these are the kinds of big incidents, very, very heartbreaking, heart wrenching incidents that of late we've all been dealing with. And that is where your personal power comes in. You have to be able to feel confident enough, credible enough, wholesome enough, sometimes to be able to ask for help, just to be able to get through those difficult nights when you might be suffering from the illness. For instance, I went through a phase like that, and that's where I really had to dive deep down into my inner resources, and really, really pull out that sense of personal power to be able to stay hopeful, because it's so easy to lose hope during that
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
So that is where personal power comes in, and it can completely be reclaimed. We'll talk about that as we go along. I'm handing it over to you. I'm presuming
Yeah.
you're waiting to ask your next question. Yes.
Yes, yes, Nija. And what you just said about expanding your circle, increasing your circle of influence, and growing to your best, and not going to your deathbed with a regret that there was much
Exactly.
more I could do. And the other day, we were just having a discussion, and a friend of mine said that, like, we do not dispose of the batteries which are half charged. Why would you want to go to deathbed with half of your potential and power lying just unused within you? And that to me was kind of such a big aha moment. I said, yeah, that's it just struck me that wow, it makes so much of sense. We're doing that in our daily lives, but to us, we're so unaware. Most of us are so unaware that there is so much of potential within us. There's so much of power that lies within us. There is this inert intelligence that is waiting to connect to us, but we are the ones who are putting so many blockages and stopping it from coming out. And it's only when that comes out, like you said, is when we get connected to a true power. And after that, what manifests is absolutely unimaginable, whether it's going through the tough times that we are facing at the moment, going through adversities, facing challenges, taking on new things in life, exploring new avenues. Eh, I mean, the way the day doors they start to open is unimaginable. And I so beautifully relate to every word that you said, Nivcha. And my next question to you is that there are a lot of women watching you and beautiful comments coming in. But the next question to you is that specifically for women, how do you think they can reclaim their personal power, knowing the constraints most of them have, most importantly in their head, rather than the actual constraints that we women have? So, how can we reclaim our personal power?
See, you're right that women have so many inner voices. This such a deep conditioning that comes from your mom's voice, your grandma's voice, your neighbor's voice, your aunt's voice, voices of your teachers. It's all around us, and there's a conditioning. We are so deeply hardwired, and in fact, we are the ones who are standing in our way all the time. So you have to push. Nirja has to push Nirja aside to be able to get ahead. And it's not easy. Uh, the start of reclaiming your power is to realize that it will take tremendous courage and a lot of conviction to challenge these unfair, societal practices that we have grown up with, uh, and the conditioning that I was just talking to. So you also have to remember that empowerment, what we call women empowerment, has to come from within. And power, Namrita, is never given to anybody on a platter. You have to reach out and claim it. So the first
Yeah.
question to ask yourself is, do you want to claim that power? Do you want it? You may not
Yeah.
want it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we work on the presumption that women want power. What if they're happy to live by proxy? By proxy means getting their sense of fulfillment or validation from their children or from their husbands, from their families. There's nothing wrong with that. You cannot say that's wrong because some women just choose to be that way, which is absolutely fine, I feel. So there is this pressure today for each one of us to evolve into a self reliant person, and it's sometimes confused with being non nurturing. I think there's a confusion there, just as I feel there's a confusion in feminism where you're trying to compete with men. I don't believe feminism is about competing with men. However, even in that nurturing role, you can reclaim your power. And I define that power as being responsible and accountable. When you're living by proxy, it also means that your happiness, your sense of peace, your ability to sleep at night is dependent on external factors like your children or your husband or relative or somebody else outside of you. That is where you're losing your power. So, in that sense, reclaiming your power means assume responsibility for yourself, lay down your boundaries very clearly, be accountable for your own peace of mind. And that is something that we have to really train ourselves to do. That is not a skill that we are taught in schools, colleges, or in our homes, even at work. We just get disturbed and hurt and fearful and disappointed and ashamed by the actions or decisions or choices of people around us. That is what I mean by reclaiming power. So, whether you're a working woman, a professional, whether you're a homemaker, a mom, as long as you are assuming responsibility for your own happiness, to me that is reclaiming of your power. So this is generally speaking. However, there are professionals, we talk about terms, Namrita, like executive feminism today, where it's a known fact that there's a glass ceiling that women have not been able to break.
Yeah.
There's a myth that
Yeah.
a woman can have everything, but the fact is a woman actually cannot have everything, right? So there are specific things you can do to reclaim your power, because let's start with our relationship with this word called ambition. Ambition is not a word that is associated with well, a nice woman. I've grown up feeling guilty about being ambitious because it's a loaded word. And it's just something that makes you feel almost well, not exactly evil, but well, not, it doesn't go well, just like laughing aloud doesn't go well with a woman, or
Yeah.
anger doesn't go well with a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
A nice woman does not get angry, she does not shout. So these are values that we have grown up with. And I want to talk about ambition a little more. Shall I continue, or you're going to interrupt me here?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, Neeraj. It's so beautiful, so profound. I want to listen to it. Yeah. And I'm
Okay,
sure the
so
audience wants to listen to it as well. Yeah.
see, where ambition is concerned, I think you need to be able to acknowledge and declare your personal space. This is my personal space. And I am inside my personal space. It's sacrosanct to me. I am going to guard it. And because this is where I grow, this is where I feel safe, this is where I'm non threatened by expectations of others, by demands of people around me. So, one is the first thing to do if you want to reclaim your personal power is claim your personal space. Then you also need to be able to advocate for yourself
Yeah.
and for others around you.
Yeah.
Not many of us are able to do that. That is something that you have to learn to do. Then you should also be able to ask for help when you need help. Many
Yeah.
of us are not able to do that. That is another skill, another art that you need to
Yeah.
acquire. Then speak up, share your opinions with others, and make it clear that this is where you see yourself, this is where you see yourself in the future. You build a supportive network. Also, you cultivate a growth mindset, which means you're growing all the time, you're learning all the time, and you're staying relevant all the time. Even for moms today, you have to work to stay relevant to your children. You may be completely out of touch with what your children are doing, or what they are, the kinds of motivations that they are working with. So, of course, we talk about self care that you must practice. And today, Namrata, the world is very, very women friendly. In fact, it's the men who are feeling a little out of sorts in many spaces because their government policies, which are in place for women. SEBI has declared that in one of the top 1,000 companies, every company must have one woman director. There have been new laws where daughters can claim property equal to the sons. So
Yeah.
this is a time for women to claim their space. However, in that process, we cannot afford to alienate men. That is
Yeah.
something I see happening around
Absolutely.
me,
Yeah.
and therefore you have this rise of the masculinist, and there's such a backlash at times.
Okay.
Simple things like if you're standing in a bus, you just might have today a young person, a young man or an older man say, you have been given all your freedom, what do you want a seat to sit on? So it comes down to those kind of levels.
Yeah.
So that is where
Yeah.
you have to watch out
Yes.
for. Yeah.
Beautiful. My God, you said so much. You said so much. You talked about responsibility, accountability. Then you talked about claiming your own personal space. And then you talked about cultivating a growth mindset, staying relevant. And
Yes.
then you talked about feminism. I mean, where we need to, work with men and treat them as our allies. So they support us. I think you can't move forward without their support, Neerja. And frankly, for me, if I talk about myself, I think I've had more men as my mentors and my, guides and people who've challenged me to be my better self than the number of women I've had in my life. So they do play a very, very important role, and it's so important to walk alongside with them. But at the same time, what struck me was the point that you talked about claiming your personal space, and you decide what comes into that space, whether it is external and internal. My internal space, whether is it occupied by my over worries and anxiety and stuff that really doesn't matter. And just to add to that, I've just come across and start following that 5 by 5 rule, which really, really works. It's like anything which does not will it's not going to bother me for next 5 years. In next 5 years, I should not pay more than 5 minutes of attention to it. And when you start weighing things from that perspective, you realize that 99% of the things, they just disappear. They don't even exist. And
That's
why
true.
do, and especially women are so good at overthinking, worrying, thinking about the past, living in the past. And that is the biggest blockage. I think that is the biggest blockage which stops them from connecting to their true inner power.
Yes. My daughter used to tell me that worry is recreational for mothers. It's almost a sport. And I was struck by that because I know we are, I think we're just, a good mother is a mother जिसको हमेशा चिंता होती रहती है all the time. And if you're not worrying so much, if your child leaves home and you're not worrying about the child, perhaps it's not a sign of being a good mother. So you're constantly expressing these thoughts, and the more you express them, it almost becomes a self fulfilling
Prophecy.
prophecy.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I totally
now,
agree.
and with the cell phones, we are in such a state where you're reporting every little move. So I've got into the cab, I reached the airport, now the aircraft is taken off, now we are landing, now I'm having my meal. That's how it goes. But it doesn't help anyone, right? And I think the new generations, the younger generations, are much better at establishing their boundaries. Also, they've been forced to do that because of the avalanche of information that they're having to negotiate today, and the pressures
Yeah.
and all these ideas of perfectionism and self-actualization, and achieving their highest potential and being authentic. These are the terms that are floating around us all the time. So they are forced to draw their boundaries. For us, my generation and my mom's generation, it was not so easy because we were brought up to look for happiness in other people's happiness. We were so
Yeah.
scared of
No, true.
confront, confronting others. I don't want to displease anyone. That's why the problem comes in about claiming your power.
Yeah.
You don't want to say anything that might be perceived as confrontational,
Yeah.
and somebody gets hurt. It's very typical of women to take the flak for a team member's laziness. It used to be very common for my generation. It's not so now. The modern
Mhm.
young women are far more conscious about this, so they may not accept blame for somebody else's, but somebody else's kind of weaknesses or mess ups. But earlier it was the dumb thing. You just were brought up to be nice all the time. You
Yeah.
have to be nice all the time. Don't ruffle
Yes.
feathers,
Yes. Absolutely.
and
Uh,
don't step on any toes. So
yeah.
these are things that you have to get out
Yeah.
of number if
Yeah.
you want to reclaim your power. You're not going to do that if you continue trying to fit into these, predetermined, predefined
Mhm.
kind of ways of being. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. There's a question from a mother who says, "My son tells me the same, but is there an alternative when things are so uncertain?" So when we talked about being an helicopter mom, this question is related to that. And she says that, is there an alternative when things are so uncertain?
I'll tell you, I'll share something with you. Look, today, as a parent, you better be ready for surprises. No matter how much you try to control the outcome of your child's life, you're not going to be able to do that because the variables are too many. So the definition I've learned today, and is something that I'm trying to practice, the role of a parent has changed. Today, you have to be the parking slot for your child. Your child is an overheated car running around on a Grand Prix track. There's water, the engine is about to burst, the water is boiling. You have no clue the kind of pressures and the kind of anxieties the child is dealing with. So your job is to be a parking lot. You just
Mhm.
sit there, let the car come, cool down, give the car the space, otherwise the car is going to burst. That's
Yeah.
how it is today. And
Yeah.
believe you me, my dear friend who's asking this question, once upon a time, a good parent was somebody to whom a child was at their best behavior, right? That's a good parent. But
Yeah.
today, a good parent is somebody uh, in front of whom the child can be at their worst. I should be able to listen to my child's worst nightmares, worst problems,
Yeah.
worst fears. I have
Yeah.
to give permission to my child to be at his or her worst. That is my test. That is what a modern,
Beautiful.
mighty parent is today. That's your role.
Beautiful.
That's my role.
Yeah,
That's my role.
beautiful. It's changed, right? It's changed drastically
It's changed
from how
drastically.
our parents' expectations were and how we are and how our kids are behaving. I think there's no reason for us to kind of compare or even um, uh, blame anyone, maybe the new generation or the Gen X that we call. But I think we need to empathize and understand their requirements, and like you said, be a parking lot waiting for them to come and park the car. and then whatever issue is there with the car, whether it needs change of the tire or servicing, we are there to
Yes.
provide that. I think that beautiful analogy. Nija, I've been talking about kids. My now next question is that does age has to do anything with the reclaiming one's personal power? And what importantly, I want to ask you this, that what made you I mean, this idea of being a teenager, it is such so intriguing. So I want you to talk more about that. When you call yourself a senior teenager, what does it really mean?
Yes, I'll talk about the Seenager first. It's I define it as a person that is millennial in spirit with the benefit of hindsight. So I have hindsight. I've lived these many years, but I'm also a millennial in spirit, which means I'm ambitious. Yes, I am ambitious, and I am experimental. I'm trying out new things. I'm constantly learning. I'm quite tech savvy,
Yeah,
and I have the similar, a similar aim as the millennials because I do want to have an impact, create an impact with my actions. So these are certain things that I have in common with the millennials, I feel. And the reason I started calling myself teenager was because I saw with my children the disconnect between the generations in the last 20 years in India. We are seeing changes that took almost 70 years to pan out in the West. So
yeah,
it's only in the last 20 years that we've had the dating sites like Tinder and Hinge and the rest of them, Bumblebee. We had this article on the LGBT,
yeah,
and then we had this the All India Bakchod movement, the freedom of expression, that there was a Pinjra Toro movement. So the social changes have become almost like a pressure cooker. There's a lot going on under the surface. Now it's become to come out. But when I started talking about the generational issues, that was a few years ago, and I decided to call myself a teenager. I said, this fits in. I need to address this. These things have to be acknowledged. It cannot happen that the next generation is experimenting with a whole lot of things that their parents are either refusing to see or are
yeah,
delusional about, or again, not acknowledging it, and that is
yeah.
leading to a lack of communication, which sometimes is causing mental distress. So
Yes,
there's depression, there is sometimes self-harm. And
yes,
whoever, Namrata, heard of shut doors in Indian homes? We never used to shut our doors, and we never talked about privacy and demanding our space and not wanting to visit relatives,
yeah,
and being so overwhelmed that we can't even handle a family holiday, for instance, because there's so many opinions. We used to just go along with our parents.
yeah,
Our parents would
yeah.
decide kahan jana hai, and we used to get into the car and
No
move.
questions
That's
asked.
not
Yes.
yeah, no
Yeah,
questions asked, but that's not the
mm,
case anymore. Today
yeah,
you're asking the children. So parental authority has all but collapsed, right?
yeah, yeah,
So there's this definition of progressive parenting, of being a friend to your child. These are concepts that we're all familiar with. But what we don't realize is the length to which these children today are going. I don't think we are aware of that, many of us, and the dangers of the internet and the digital highways, where many of them are not safe. For instance, you give them a smartphone, but there's no orientation. You don't tell them anything about the dark web, for instance, or
yeah,
what all is available
yeah,
there. So these
yeah.
are the issues that I started talking about and I started writing about. So I published my book.
Beautiful.
Uh, I've written three generational books by now,
Okay,
again talking
great.
about all these issues which cause this disconnect, and which is very dangerous, Namrata, because civilization, as a society, we can't move forward unless we are able to communicate with each other. The generations need each other. The younger generations need us as much as we need them. So that is about the
Beautiful.
signature part. And by
Beautiful.
now, Namrata, I got so carried away that I've forgotten the other part of the question. I'm so sorry.
Yes, the other
You
part
were
was
asking?
that is age relevant when we talk about reclaiming our
Yes,
power?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think Well, I can think of that lady, 94-year-old entrepreneur, Harbhajan, who
Yeah.
started making besan ki barfi at age 90 in
Yes.
Chandigarh.
Yes.
And her regret was to her daughter that I've never ever earned my own money. Imagine at age 90. And her daughter was so struck that she decided to push her to do that. And she started making this organic besan barfi. And today she's all over the place. We know that I think it was. I am trying to recall this person, Mahindra, or one of these,
Anand
Anand
Mahindra.
Mahindra, who,
Yeah.
yes, who
Yeah.
tweeted about her, who tweeted
Yeah.
about her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
that if we talk about entrepreneurs as being millennials, but look at this entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He called her the entrepreneur of the year. So
Yeah.
if at 90 you could reclaim your personal power, how do you say that there is an age? And there is
Absolutely.
another story, Namrita, of a 104 5-year-old Bhagirti Amma who cleared her fourth standard at age 105.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
she's known as the oldest literacy equivalency learner under the
Mm-hmm.
Kerala State Literacy Mission. So I don't
Amazing.
think there's anything like an age. I've been reinventing myself along the way. I
Yeah.
became the president of the PSAI only in April this year,
Yeah.
and I joined the PSAI just a year ago.
Yeah.
So there's so much out there to do, and I don't think age, as long as the desire is there to reclaim your personal power, to feel good about what you're doing, well, age doesn't matter. And by the way,
Correct.
I just started learning the foxtrot and the tango and the
Oh, wow.
waltz. All
Amazing.
this was
Yeah.
before the COVID struck, of course, and social distancing happened. So no, I don't believe there's any age. Namrata, and I'm an example.
Amazing, amazing. I think it's a spirit, and your spirit never ages. It
Absolutely.
ages with when you put your obstacles. I think even a young person who is not that motivated and doesn't want to go out of the comfort zone and remain stuck where they are, I think they are more old. They're older than a person, like you said, a 90-year-old who's just there to reclaim a personal power because it's the age of your spirit and the age of your enthusiasm that matters. It's not your biological age that matters. And so profound and well said. Nisha, my next question to you is that what good does reclaiming one's personal power do to the world?
That's a question, but I just want to add one more thing to what we just finished
Yeah, sure,
discussing.
sure.
See, all these reclaiming of your power doesn't have to be something big and grand. I don't know if Mrs. Janice Jain is listening to this, but I know you can reclaim your power by just deciding to celebrate Diwali properly, by
Yeah,
just putting on, right? Just putting on
yeah,
your sari and doing up
yes.
the house, and these are the little ways. So
Small
you could
little
be,
things in life. Yes,
yes, you could be
absolutely.
reclaiming your power every single day. It doesn't have to be all these
Doing,
Mount
yeah,
Everest that we talk about, right?
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
important to keep in
I think
mind.
that's a very valid point you covered, because I think these small things are what matter the most.
They
And that
do.
is how something big happens only when you are doing these small things every day in your life and,
Exactly.
practicing reclaiming your power and finding your happiness and joy in things that really matter to you. Right? It could be
Yes,
as
ma'am.
simple as, like you said, wearing a nice sari or doing some embroidery on that sari and wearing it. It really doesn't matter what you do. It's how you do what you do, what matters. That matters
Yes, it's that that ability, a conscious living of every moment with grace,
with
and if
grace.
you're
Yeah.
able to keep that topmost in your mind, which
Mhm.
is easier said than done, but it's a habit you cultivated, and you try and do your best. Of course, there are moments when all of us are tired, all of us are fatigued. Sometimes we are dispirited. Sometimes you're just feeling so discouraged, or you're in grief for some reason. But if you're able to handle that moment with as much grace as possible, you are reclaiming your personal power. So your
Absolutely. And
question,
also, like, you're going through lows in life, you do not stay in that state for very long. Yes, we are all humans, we all have emotions. But how long do you allow yourself to stay in that emotional state, which is low and which pulls you down? is also a part of reclaiming your personal power, right? And like you said, it's a habit that you can cultivate and anyone can do it. You don't need
Yes.
any kind of specialization here. And um, um, but interestingly, Nirja, the thing is, nobody, we've been educated, we've all highly educated, but nowhere our education system has taught this. It comes through, when we talk to people like you, through mentors, when we get into self development, we want to go out of the or out of the box that we are boxed in by the society, by the norms, by our education system. Do we uncover these amazing facts of life which are so empowering?
Yes, Namrata, that's true. So all these years, for many, many decades now, the education system has been focusing on the academic norms, what we call, and not enough on the normative values. But again, in the recent past, things have begun to change.
Change,
The
yes.
economy is changing because of artificial intelligence and technology. It is standing everything on its head. And for instance, innovation has now become disruption or knowledge economy. We are in the middle of knowledge economy. It's giving way to the feelings economy. And now you're suddenly talking about empathy, about how the hearts are going to be important because the computer and artificial intelligence is going to do what your mind is doing right now.
Yeah,
So things
absolutely.
are changing so drastically and so fast. And there's a realization that social emotional learning is a new subject, a new skill, which is
It's new.
being advocated out there, which is being introduced in schools.
Yeah,
And there's a conscious effort being made because there's a realization that we are just not equipped to manage our emotions. So no amount of scientific principles or theorems or physics formulas or mathematics that you know is
yeah,
enough to see you through life's lows, ups and downs.
yeah,
To be able to handle all these successfully, you need certain skills to manage your emotions. And
absolutely.
these emotions are so, again, so deeply wired in our heads since our childhood that it's taking time. But with the subsequent generations, perhaps it will be easier. So suddenly you find that feelings are important today. Again, in homes, we never talked about feelings, but now there's a lot of talk around feelings, around
Yeah. Yeah,
emotions, and
emotions. Yeah, even the corporates are
yes,
talking about it.
corporates are
Which is,
talking about.
yes, which is a path breaker, I'm sure. Great disruption, absolutely happening everywhere around us, and we are the maybe the lucky ones who are seeing the transition. We've already seen a lot of transition from what the world was to what it is now, and now this kind of transition happening in life skills and the way people want to seek it. Actually, I think a lot of people want to seek it, to learn how to. Um, navigate through their life experiences which nobody teaches them. So that's the reason we are having such shows and we have women like you talking to a lot of our audience, and these pearls of wisdoms are really, really very valuable. Nisha, the next question is that what are the key messages you have for the women who are listening to you today?
See, my key message, let's put it like this, that you must definitely seek power. Just step out there and seek personal power, reclaim your personal power. Do not be afraid of power. And when you claim your personal, when you step into your power, you're going to become emotionally mature. You're going to be stronger, you're going to be more independent, there'll be a greater sense of balance, and you will make a better human being, a better friend, a better mother, a better wife, a better professional. All of this is going to happen if you reclaim your personal power. And it's a beautiful, beautiful feeling. Power is a beautiful feeling. It's not bad. It's almost ethereal because it gives you confidence, it gives you control, it gives you a sense of clarity. And it's important to be conscious of it and ask yourself, reflect a little on what power means to you. And we've had Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, so many business women in India blaze these trails, literally trails. And
Trailblazer.
talk of the grassroots level. Even at the grassroots level, Indian women do so much of work. They'll look after their homes, they'll travel kilometers and miles to get that water for the family. So
Yeah.
the entire, the gender has been actually doing some very, very remarkable, commendable work. My only message to all the women out there is that we are not here to compete with men. I think it's very important to be clear on that when you're talking about reclaiming your power, but also don't play the victim. We do tend to kind of over the generations we tend to play the victim. We sometimes there is a stereotypical image of women manipulating men and exercising power by proxy, which is not their personal power but the power they are exercising through the men around them, through the power of the men around them. Then, Anamita, there is this cat fight kind of a stereotype about women,
Yeah.
that
A lot. Yes, heard a lot
women
about
will
it.
not, yes, that a woman will pull the other woman down. They don't like
Yeah.
other successful
Yeah.
women. I think it's important to break that. And women
Yeah.
are not their own worst enemies. I do not believe in that. The message is that we ought to rise together as individuals and as a collective. And I'm not talking in drastic terms of changing the world, but we can definitely create ripples. And when you create a ripple, well, there are possibilities. You don't know how far out those
Far
ripples
they
can
go.
go. Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So that would be, I think, the fundamental message. Yes.
Absolutely. Beautiful, Nirja. And I think the last point that you said about women supporting women is so important.
So
And
important.
that is one of our aims here through this platform. And when we started this platform, we were not sure as to how much support we'll get, but seeing there's so many like-minded women and they know that their own success, their own claiming to power only comes when they would support other like-minded women to do that. So when I empower someone else to do that, what I'm indirectly doing is that I'm empowering myself. So that is
Absolutely.
what it is for me. And I realize the more you do it, the more powerful you become. And especially when you're uplifting others, you level up yourself so many times, n number of times, it's like 10x times. And this is so profound and it is so beautiful. But the moment you pull someone else down, you are pulling yourself down again 10x times. And this fundamental, if people get to understand, is I think so essential when we realize as women how much we need to support and uplift each other to help other to reclaim their personal power, because by doing that you are reclaiming your personal power. And and this is really so beautiful, Nija. And thank you so much for all the wisdoms and the insights. I think it was an absolutely mind blowing, powerful session. And I'm sure the audience had a lot of takeaways and they have understood the tools and techniques now to unlock and reclaim their personal power. And you've spoken, I think we need another session, Nija. This wasn't enough. There was so much of wisdom that you have to give and share with us. I will be planning another session with you very soon. But thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. And we really enjoyed listening to you, Nirja. Thank you so much. And there's so many beautiful comments coming all over. And I'm sure you'll be able to see it once we put the live. And your session is being absolutely loved. And they say it's a very powerful session, and someone is saying that it's very, very true. Thank you, Nija, for sharing. This is absolutely mind blowing. So there's beautiful comments coming all the way from so many audience who are watching us today. So thank you once again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you very soon and having another session with you. And all the beautiful audience out there, thank you so much for being here. And we would be back soon the next week with another outstanding woman who would be talking about issues that that impact have an impact on us, that would help us to grow, to transform and become better versions, more empowered versions of ourselves. We can actually go out and reclaim our true power. So thank you once again, and take
Thank
care of
you.
yourselves, and bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye.